in this period of gradual return to normalcy. On behalf of the Europe Direct Information Center at the University of Luxembourg, EDIC, I welcome you warmly to our new webinar entitled The Schengen Area Under Pressure, Origins, Challenges, Prospects, organized in cooperation with the European Museum Schengen and EDIC Schengen. I am particularly grateful to our keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Goebbels, a long-standing prominent personality in the political life of Europe, who was negotiator and signatory of the Schengen Agreement for Luxembourg. I would also like to thank the partners and the team who worked on the organization of the event, especially my colleagues Joana da Silva and Robert Betta. As you know, the free movement of people is one of the four fundamental freedoms of the European Union, together with that of goods, services, and capital. Enshrined in the Treaty of Rome as part of the single market, the principle of the free movement of people took a new dimension when, on 14 June 1985, 5 member states of the European Community at that time, Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and Germany, concluded the Schengen Agreement on the gradual abolition of checks at their common borders. Then, on the 19th of June 1990, the same partners signed the Schengen Convention, which supplemented the agreement and laid down the condition of its application. The Schengen Acquis was incorporated into the European Community Pillar of the European Union by the Treaty of Amsterdam, signed on 2nd October 1997, paving the way for a single area of security and justice. Today, the Schengen area is a vast zone of free movement, which currently has 26 partners, 22 of the 27 EU member states, and 4 associated countries, and covers 4 million square kilometers. And the Schengen area is one of the pillars of the European project. But it has been affected by several difficulties, and since March 2020, the COVID-19 crisis is here. Identifying these obstacles is vital so that pragmatic solution can be found without jeopardizing the founding principle. Our webinar aims to look back at the origins of the Schengen area, discuss the current challenges, and consider future prospects. So the program for today. By way of introduction, I invite you to watch a short documentary film looking at the origins and impact of the Schengen Agreement. Then it will be the address of Mr. Robert Goebbels, negotiator and signatory of the Schengen Agreement in Luxembourg, followed by a debate with the audience. The talk will be in English. Questions may also asked in French, German, and Luxembourgish. After the film, I will hand over to Joanna, who will explain you how to proceed to ask questions and to debate with our outstanding speakers. At the end, it will be a virtual tour of the Schengen Museum and of the town of Schengen by Martina Klein, director of the Schengen Museum, who was unable to be with us today. So let's start our meeting by the screening of this documentary film. We have a sound problem.
Excuse me, could you repeat that, Elena?
We have a problem with the sound.
Okay.
Thank you very much for starting with the explanation concerning the question. It seems to be a sound problem with the film, with the screening. The film reflected especially the roots of the Schengen Agreement and the crisis of the Schengen Area since 1985. I'm sure that Mr. Goebbels will underline in his address all these difficult moments in the Schengen area history. And now, Joanna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elena. Well, how to ask questions. As an attendee, your microphone will be muted and your video will be turned off by default. And if you want to ask a question to the speaker, you can let me know you want to talk. So please click on the raise hand button, which will place a small hand icon next to your name in the participant list on the right side of your screen. Then I will unmute your microphone and you will be able to speak. If there is any issue, you can always contact me by writing a question in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Joanna. Mr. Goebbels is an outstanding personality in the political life of Luxembourg and Europe, and he needs no introduction. However, let me say a few words about his career. Mr. Goebbels started his career as journalist specialized in international affairs. He was elected 3 times as chairman of the Luxembourg Association of Journalists. His political career started as president of the Young Socialists in 1969. He was then elected Secretary General of the Luxembourg Socialist Party in 1971 and regularly re-elected up to 1984. From 1984 to 1999, he was a member of the Luxembourgish government, and in this capacity, he negotiated and signed the Schengen Agreement for Luxembourg. Then, between 1999 and 2014, he was elected as a member of the European Parliament. In July 2014, Mr. Goebbels retired from active politics, but he continues to give public lectures, like our lecture from today, and to publish several articles in the national and international press. Mr. Goebbels, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Panescu, and thank you all for listening to this little introduction on what I call the spirit of Schengen. In the 80s, in last century, something special happened. Australian songwriter wrote a famous song called "Love is in the Air." But in the 80s, also the free movement of people was somewhat in the air. Especially 2 great statements, French President François Mitterrand and the German Chancellor Helmut Kohl took a couple of initiatives in order to foster the free movement of people. Mitterrand and Kohl even had a good supper in Strasbourg one night. At the end of this good supper, they decided to open the European bridge between Strasbourg and the German town of Kehl and to abolish border controls. But unfortunately, this good idea proved to be unworkable. So at the European Summit in June 1984 in Versailles, under the chairmanship of François Mitterrand, the French, together with the Germans, proposed a common European policy aiming at free movement of people. Immediately, Maggie Thatcher, the usual no-sayer, opposed her veto, and this policy was officially banned. After the summit, the 3 prime ministers of the Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, wrote a common letter to Mitterrand and Kohl, and they proposed to start an initiative just among the 5 founding states of the European Union. It was in fact the first enhanced cooperation in the European Union which was proposed by the three prime ministers. Mitterrand and Kohl agreed, and a little intergovernmental conference was launched between those five states. For practical reasons, it was decided to conduct a negotiation at the Secretariat of the Benelux, which is located in Brussels. And in 1985, the turning chairmanship of the Benelux came to Luxembourg, which by chance made me the chairman and chief negotiator of this little conference, which came very quickly to results. And as chairman of the Benelux Council, I had to invite my 5 colleagues for the signing of what would become the Schengen Agreement. The fact that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the 5 participating countries delegated their number 2, their Secretary of State, shows that in the capitals nobody really believed in the process, and nobody foresaw the impact of this initiative. So we had to sign the first agreement, and I had chosen Schengen, this little town in Luxembourg, for its symbolism. It's a tiny little village with less than 300 inhabitants in these days, and it's located at the borders between the 3 Benelux countries, between Luxembourg and Germany and France. So it was rather symbolic to sign there, Benelux and Germany and France joining at the same point. And to reinforce the symbolism, we even signed in the boat which was in the Moselle River. The Moselle River is a common river to France, Germany, and Luxembourg, and that should have had improved the symbolism, but nobody understood this in fact. As a host, I made a little speech, and at the end of my speech, I said a little bit jokefully, what we are going to sign now will enter history as the Treaty of Schengen. Everybody laughed, but it proved that I was right. The fact was that the first Treaty of Schengen was not too much. It offered some easing of the border controls between the 5 participant countries, but it was adopted carefully by the citizens of the 5 countries, especially in the border region. People asked for more because even after Schengen 1, the custom officers were still there, and they were allowed to make checks, random checks. But there was a real public pressure for abolishing these cumbersome border controls, so the 5 Secretary of States continued to negotiate. But it took us almost 5 additional years to prepare what would become the second Schengen Convention of 1990. I was one of the negotiators during all those 5 years, and we had to invent a lot of common policies on visas, on refugees, on cooperation in the field of police and justice. So we invented the so-called Schengen Information System, which is a huge database now located in Strasbourg, and where the police of all the participant countries get information about people wanted by justice, about stolen cars, and things like that. And this Schengen Information System is so useful that even Great Britain, which was never a part of Schengen, adhered to the Schengen Information System because they thought it was a good instrument for the fight against criminality. As I said, it took us 5 years for the negotiation of the second Schengen Agreement, but it took an additional 5 years for the ratification of the Schengen Convention. The first Schengen Agreement was signed without real public notice. In the little film we saw a few pictures. There was only one TV crew there to film the first scene, for the French TV crew. Not even the Luxembourg TV came for the sign. But after this, when we negotiated the second Schengen Convention, there was a lot of political opposition, mainly in the Netherlands, which was in these years one of the most liberal states in Europe. The fear was that the abolition of internal borders between the member states and stronger controls at the common external borders would create what was called the fortress Europe. But the progressive abolition of all the controls on the internal borders became so attractive with the populations of the 5 countries and beyond, that more and more states joined the Schengen space. So we finally ended up by signing the Schengen Convention, immediately followed by enlargement first to Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, and more member states of the European Union came. The idea was accepted now. Jacques Delors, who was in these years the president of the Commission, had launched its internal market policy with the 4 freedoms: freedom for goods, freedom for services, freedom for money circulation, and freedom of circulation of people. So it has become a real European policy. At the Amsterdam Treaty in 1997, the Schengen acquis was incorporated in the so-called Amsterdam Treaty. And the Schengen acquis and the Schengen objective were confirmed with the Treaty of Maastricht, the Treaty of Nizza, and the Treaty of Lisbon. But Schengen, even if the treaties don't exist anymore, the name Schengen is still there, and Schengen continues to symbolize the free movement of people. Those politicians who periodically threaten to leave Schengen seem to ignore that the fact that quitting Schengen means quitting the European Union. I have here the consolidated treaties of the European Union, and if you look into them, you see that already in Article 3 of the basis treaty, it is said, and I quote, "The Union shall offer its citizens an area of freedom, security, and justice without internal borders, in which the free movement of persons is ensured." That's Article 3 of the treaty, and whoever wants to come back to the situation before has either to try to change the treaties or has to leave the European Union. At the Treaty of Amsterdam, Britain and Ireland were granted an opt-out. Cyprus cannot join as long it stays divided. Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia are not yet accepted as Schengen countries for security reasons, before mainly by Germany. But very interestingly, Norway, Iceland, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein joined the Schengen area, where every year roughly 1.5 billion, I repeat, 1.5 billion people cross internal borders without being controlled. Who thinks it would be possible to really control 1.5 billion people? Who believes that there will be no economic consequences if member states try to control movements of tourists? France, in normal years, receives some 70 million tourists from all over the world. Who really wants to bother them? Before the COP21, that to Paris Climate Treaty, France introduced controls on its borders. There were at that time enormous traffic jams between France and Luxembourg, and between France and Germany, France and Switzerland, and so on. The 100,000 French people commuting every working day to Luxembourg had to endure an average 2 hours more for their daily journey. The frustration was immense. The results of the controls were insignificant. Not a single terrorist was arrested throughout Europe at the border control. And with COVID-19, we re-experienced this. We saw what those silly controls at the borders bring. Only traffic jams and annoyance to those people who have work. In fact, if we would try to go back to the status quo ante, to the border, the controls at all internal borders, this would mean an enormous multiplication of custom and police officers in order the states to really control 1.5 billion movements. Would it not be better to reinforce, as Article 77.2d of the Treaty on the Function of the European Union tells, and I quote again, the gradual establishment of an integrated management system for external borders. For example, Greece is a Schengen country, but has no single common border with the rest of the Schengen area. It cannot control, without our help, the shores of its 1,200 main islands. All these islands cannot be secured, by the way, cannot be secured with walls like those around Ceuta and Melilla, the Spanish enclaves in Morocco. By the way, Ceuta and Melilla are not a part of the Schengen area. But despite the tough controls, there are refugees ending up in Ceuta and Melilla will eventually come to Europe. So, dear friends, let's be realistic. Hiding behind national borders will not prevent refugees who seek security for their lives or to try to escape to misery. It will encourage new forms of criminality. The United Kingdom never abolished border controls in its islands, but there were and there is still a high number of illegal refugees also in Britain. As there is criminality like everywhere else, and as there were terrorist acts in Britain, despite the fact that in theory Britain was able to control its border. Free movement of people is one of the four cornerstones of the European Union. Can anybody imagine a union where only goods, services, and capital can circulate freely, but where citizens are permanently controlled? Therefore, I'm convinced that the introduction of permanent controls and internal borders would lead to popular uproar, mainly in border regions. The economic impact of such border controls would also be enormous. A recent study of the European Union Commission estimates annual economic losses from 5 to 18 billion euros if new borders were added. And we saw it with the COVID crisis, where not only the member states of the European Union, but almost the rest of the world had this archaic reflex to bring up new border controls. Some member states of Schengen reintroduced controls at their borders. We had them between Luxembourg and Germany, Luxembourg and France, Luxembourg and Belgium, even though the Luxembourg government didn't introduce controls. I think our government was right. In fact, 220 states and territories in the world reinforced their border controls in order to stop the virus. And if you look at the results, the virus progressed despite those controls. Even in the Federal Republic, the lenders had different policies to stop the border controls, and in France, the government imposed different policies from département to département, even though the borders of those départements have been established by Napoleon I. is very accurate. For all those reasons, and for close to 2 million Europeans who work in the neighboring countries, in Luxembourg we have more than 200,000 commuters coming mainly from France, Bulgaria, and Germany. For the 20 million people from third countries who with the same visa can travel throughout the 26 states of the Schengen area, but mainly for the right of our citizens to travel freely through our Europe. I'm pretty convinced that Schengen is there to stay. And if I see the reactions we have here in Luxembourg, but also in other parts of Europe, against these new controls at national or even regional borders, I'm pretty sure that once the COVID period is over, we will see a revival of Schengen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goebbels, for a very interesting talk. I would like to add that you have a street on your name in Schengen. One of the main streets in Schengen is the street Robert Goebbels, and our partner, the headquarters of our partner are based on this main street of Schengen.
Yeah.
So, you are a living historical key figure.
Yes, thank you so much for this compliment. But I have to add that when the Mosel River is full of water, the Rue Robert Goebbels is the first to be drowned.
So I open the floor for questions. There are questions. If not for the moment, I will start with the first question. Yes? Okay, Joanna. I apologize. So, the first question.
I guess that I have the floor.
Yeah.
So my name is Jörg Gerkrat. I'm professor of European Union law at the University of Luxembourg. And my question to Robert Goebbels would be on the very last part of your presentation regarding the reintroduction of temporary border controls by Germany and France, as you mentioned them, as a reflex or a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I have the strong feeling that this reintroduction of temporary border controls was not consistent with the Schengen Border Code, because the Schengen Border Code states very clearly in, I think it's Article 25, that border controls can only be reintroduced as a last resort, and there are strict criteria to respect, especially also the criteria of proportionality. So I'm very astonished that the European Commission did not intervene and did not introduce infringement actions against the member states who, in my opinion, reintroduced much too easily these border controls. Thank you.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. Professor, you are definitely right. The Schengen Border Code allows to reintroduce controls in special events. As I said, the French did it before the Paris climate agreement. Germany did it during the World soccer games in Germany in order to prevent hooligans to enter Germany. Norway did it after the killings which happened in Oslo, where several dozens of young people were shot by lunatic, and they immediately introduced border controls, but lifted it after 24 hours because they saw that it was a Norwegian guy who killed the Norwegians. So border controls can be done, but they have to be notified to the Commission, and the Commission has to allow them. In this case, but also before, during the migration crisis, the Commission was very slow to react, and Mrs. von der Leyen made an appeal in order to respect the Schengen rules, but that was it. An infringement procedure should have been possible or was really needed, but if you know how much time it takes for the European Court of Justice to handle this, whole COVID story will probably be over. So you are right, there was an infringement, but the Commission didn't react. But to my personal joy, people reacted. If you saw how many mayors on the Luxembourg-German border reacted, how many local politicians reacted, how many simple citizens reacted and protested against these silly controls which really didn't mean anything. I think that's an encouragement for the future and will probably help to bring at least the government of the Schengen countries to better intentions for the future.
Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you also, Professor Gerhard. Other questions, please. If not, I would like to ask you, Mr. Goebbels, what were the main tensions in signing this Schengen agreement?
The first Schengen agreement of 1985 encountered almost no opposition. We occupied an empty space in politics and found an immediate success with citizens. As I said in my short introduction, for the second Schengen agreement, we encountered much more political opposition from the left and the extreme left. There was always the accusation we would create the fortress Europe, and from the right and the extreme right, it was always the accusation we would address an invitation to criminals and to refugees and to all the bad things in the world to enter freely into the European Union. But after a rather difficult political process, we achieved the Schengen Convention, and we achieved ratification, the Dutch Parliament being the last one to say yes. And then, as I said, continued like this. The City of Amsterdam incorporated the Schengen Acquis into European law. And since then, we periodically have new attacks against Schengen. We had it during the migration crisis. We have it now with the COVID crisis. But there are, especially right-wing politicians in the Netherlands, in France, in Italy, who are against the freedoms of Schengen and who want to have national control again. As I said, that means that those who want to implement it have to quit the European Union or try to change the treaty, and changing the treaty means an intergovernmental conference with all the member states, ratification by all the national parliaments, the European Parliament, and at least a national referendum in Ireland. So it's good luck for changing the treaties. The biggest question, in fact, remaining is the question of external borders. Schengen is freedom of circulation in the Schengen area, in the common borders, which automatically means that you have to reinforce controls at the outside borders. What the European Union is trying to do since a couple of years, and therefore the Schengen Group was a little bit strengthened. We have this famous organization Frontex, which in theory is in charge of controlling external borders of the Schengen area. But when Frontex was created, its headquarters were established in Warsaw, Poland, because in those days we thought that mainly immigrants would come from the east. Then came the crisis in Syria, Iraq, and all those countries, and they appeared on our southern borders. It was now decided to reinforce the external controls. Frontex, according to a decision by the head of state of government, should become an organization with 10,000 custom officers, common customs officers, in order to control external borders, but there is no quick progress, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Yes, Joanna. Another question.
Hello. So I'd like to ask Mr. Goebbels a question.
Yes, please.
So some people argue that free movement of labour within the Schengen area has actually facilitated a brain drain from some of the countries in Southern and Eastern Europe, hurting the future prospects of those countries, while simultaneously saturating the labour markets of some Northern European countries, leading to stagnating wages. So I'd just like to know, to what extent do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
If you accept free movement of people, you have to accept the choice of those people to move and eventually to settle down somewhere and to work there. And it's one of the common policies of the European Union as such that this is possible. And fact of life is that thanks to Schengen and thanks to this movement, students nowadays are free not only to travel but to study everywhere. And it's logic that they can also choose to work wherever they like. That can lead to some brain drain, as you said, when I see the number of Romanian doctors which are in Luxembourg. I guess that in Romania they must have problem to find enough doctors. But that's the corollary of the acceptance of free movement of people, of freedom to work. I have to confess that I'm more concerned about the brain drain the European Union is imposing on emerging states, mainly in Africa. There you have a lot of young, well-formed people, often formed in our universities, who would be very good at helping their countries to develop, but who very often, for reasons we have to respect, choose to work and live in Europe. But either you accept freedom or you go to a system like in China, where you are assignated to a certain province and where you almost cannot leave that province to work elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Other questions, please?
I have received 2 written questions. May I read them out loud?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question.
One after the other is easier to answer.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So there's one question from Mr. Diaz da Costa. He asks, if Bulgaria and Romania are prevented to join on the grounds of lack of progress on the fight against organized crime and corruption, should the European Union not have tried to put more pressure during their accession process?
Probably yes, but the accession of most of the Central and Eastern countries came too quickly for political reasons. A lot of problems we have with certain countries nowadays come from the fact that nothing was really negotiated to the end of the logic, but that one moment head of state and government decided for political reasons that we should be open for 10 countries and then for Romania, Bulgaria, and then Croatia, and so on and so on. It's possibly a political mistake, but we have to live with it. In addition to that, some of the critics made, especially against Bulgaria and Romania, were made for domestic political reasons in some countries. It was always a Bavarian Minister of the Interior in Germany seemed to monopolize that post, who opposed the joining of Bulgaria and Croatia, saying that they were not yet well prepared. Greece was not better prepared, and as I said, Greece with its 1,200 islands has a real problem. But in those days, the migration question was not in the headlines yet. But since then, it's always good for some politicians in some countries to play the tough guy, the sheriff who wants to have foreigners out. And unfortunately, that happened. And it happened maybe in one of the important member states of the European Union, Germany, but it happened also in Denmark, for instance.
Thank you very much. The second question is from Mariam Pakal. And the question is, in your opinion, what is the outlook for the enlargement of the Schengen area?
I think that after the COVID crisis, there will be an in-depth discussion about free movement of people. We obviously need quickly an agreement for re-establishing free movements within the European Union and within the Schengen area, of course. We need common rules for exchanges of goods, for trains who will circulate beyond borders, for airplanes, for ships and all the rest. And that will bring up the whole discussion about not only freedom for goods and services and the circulation of capital, but also of people. And we will, I think, rather quickly accept Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia as full members of the Schengen area. For me, that will be very positive. As I said, Cyprus, for the foreseeable future, will not be able to join us. We have this internal border with the Turkish part. And stays the case of Ireland, which has only one terrestrial border. This is the terrestrial border with Northern Ireland, which was also one of the big problems of Brexit, but is still there, and it's difficult to extend the Schengen agreement only to the Republic of Ireland and not to North of Ireland. But that may change too.
Thank you very much. There is still one participant who wants to ask you a question.
Hello. I'm one of those students that actually benefit a lot from the freedom of movement. So, thank you very much for that. I'm also actually one of the members of the Young European Socialist Party, but also the Young Socialisten. Also, my name is Elisha Winkel, but my question actually it pertains to something that the other attendee 2 questions ago asked, and it is really again about the fact that if you are a student, if you belong to that kind of, say, social economic environment, you have all the benefits of freedom of movement. You can cross the borders wherever you want to. You can go and study in another country. But I can see it as well with my brothers, for instance. Like, we all live in Schengen. The only time they kind of cross the border on a regular basis is to go do grocery shopping on the other side, or to meet friends from the other side. But there is not much deeper movement. So for me, the question is, because I still haven't found a very, very good answer. If you are a person that, say, lives in the middle of Germany, that only leaves the borders of your country once or twice a year, how can you make the importance of the Schengen area more known to them, without just saying, okay, this also gives you access to a lot of goods and a lot of different services which you might not have been able to get. So to just rephrase very quickly, how can you convince people that do not take advantage of the freedom of movement every day or regularly that it is a good thing and not just a good thing for European Union of the markets? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elisha. The recent events have proven that border controls hamper people and also restrain their liberties. And I think that a lot of people have registered these in the last 2-3 months and will be able to better understand the necessities to come back to Schengen and its goals. Of course, there will always be people who will never benefit from Schengen. Or your brothers who will just cross the Moselle bridge to go to have a drink in Pearl. But that's personal freedom. You cannot encourage people to travel around just for the fun of traveling around. Everybody chooses to work, to study at home or abroad. The possibility must be given. 95% of American citizens never leave the United States. They have freedom of movement within the 50 states of the Union, but they never leave it. Europeans travel much more. Germans, Dutch, Scandinavians, Luxembourgers, they usually go once, twice, even more often for holidays somewhere. That's a freedom. And it's their choice. And, but of course, if somebody never leaves his own village, it's difficult to convince that Schengen is a good thing. But in general, I strongly believe, and I'm very sure that Schengen is there to stay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for the last question. So, if you permit, I will ask you this last question.
Yeah.
What are your comments on Brexit in this eventuality of a no-deal Brexit?
Sorry?
What are your comments on Brexit in the eventuality of no-deal Brexit?
A no-deal Brexit will mean that we will have problems to exchange all the areas with our British friends, because I consider them still as friends, but they will suffer more. Britain is an important economic partner for the European Union, but no more for the rest of the world. And some of the Brexiteers still dream about the British Empire, which is lost and gone. And even countries like India, Australia, or recently Canada prefer to have a free trade arrangement with the European Union and its 450 million citizens than to have a trade deal with Great Britain with its 70 million people. That's simply the reality of economic life. The European Union still offers the biggest and internal market with the biggest purchasing power in the world. Our market is bigger than the US market and even bigger than the Chinese market, economically speaking, purchasing power speaking. So the European Union will always be a point of attraction for all the countries who want to export to Europe and want to import from Europe. And Britain will have more problems than we will.
Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite you to have a look to the village of Schengen and also to the Schengen Museum through the screening of two little films. dear participants, I'd like to thank you again for your participation, for your questions. I would like to warmly thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Goebbels, for the honor to be with us today and to share with us his memory about this historical moment of European integration process and of the recent history of Luxembourg. You will find this conference, this recorded conference, on the university's website. And I would like to invite you to go to Schengen, to visit the area, the museum, and to know a little bit more in situ what's the European integration history in the free circulation of persons means. I would like also to invite you to our next webinar. It will be on the 1st of July, and we will start the series on art collections in European institutions in Luxembourg through a conference concerning this art collection of the European Court of Justice. Until then, I wish you all the best, and stay safe. Thanks once again all. Thank you very much.
And now let's have a glass of Schengen wine, at least virtually.
Yes. Yes.